TSA, it stands for Transportation Security Administration. The joke has been it means thousands standing around. Now it turns out that that may be closer to the truth, after a shocking new report found that TSA agents failed on 67 out of 70 security tests. I'll say that again. They failed 67 out of 70 tests. Bombs came through, weapons came through, but little old ladies had to take their shoes off, and little children about 9 or 10 years old had to get patted down and searched. But you think that makes you safer? Not on your life.
Undercover agents were able to smuggle weapons and fake explosives through checkpoints. And the acting head of the TSA has been pulled from his job after these revelations. Charlene Aaron has the story.
Homeland Security Secretary Jeh Johnson reassigned the leader of the TSA and directed the agency to revise airport security procedures, retrain officers, and retest screening equipment in airports across the country. The changes come after an internal report found shocking failures in airport security, specifically the ability to take banned items right through TSA checkpoints. The series of tests were conducted by undercover Homeland Security agents posing as passengers. According to ABC News, the agents were able to smuggle items such as mock explosives and weapons through TSA checkpoints in 67 out of 70 attempts.
Anytime there's a high rate of misses, that causes concern.
This is not the first time the TSA has had trouble with security breaches. In 2013, an undercover investigator with a fake bomb hidden on his body passed through a metal detector, went through a pat-down at New Jersey's Newark Liberty Airport, and was never caught.
The terrorists do watch this thing. They do watch and they go to school on how they can learn from possible vulnerabilities.
Johnson is demanding the agency immediately revise standard operating procedures for screenings, provide intensive training for supervisors, retest and reevaluate screening equipment, and TSA screeners can expect even more random covert testing. Meanwhile, the administration still touts its dedication to safety and security. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
It's nothing but a feel-good project to make people feel safe when they fly airplanes. It's just nonsense. You go to Israel, they know how to do it. Why? Because they have pre-screening. They know the kind of people who will blow up planes, and they screen them for that. Here in America, we can't do that because they call that profiling, and the ACLU or others will say, oh, well, you're violating their civil rights, and you can't be politically correct. Well, as a result, little grandmothers have to go with their shoes off, and little kids get patted down, and it's just a total nonsense. It's a waste of money and a waste of time. But it is a make-work project for a lot of people who would otherwise be unemployed. Well, in other news, President Obama is trying to reassure the people of Israel that a deal with Iran is the only way to stop it from building nuclear weapons. John Jessup has this amazing story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. Here's John.
Thanks, Pat. President Obama told Israel's Channel 2 News that a military strike would not fix Iran's nuclear program, but that a negotiated deal would. And as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, Israeli officials remain skeptical.
Obama said a negotiated settlement is the best solution to Iran's nuclear program.
I think, demonstrate, not based on any hope, but on facts and evidence and analysis, that the best way to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon is a verifiable, tough agreement.
He added a military solution wouldn't work.
A military solution will not fix it, even if the United States participates. It would temporarily slow down an Iranian nuclear program, but it will not eliminate it.
Obama tried to calm a skeptical Israeli public when he said he understood their fears and concerns. The interview also seemed designed to oppose the stance of the Netanyahu government. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly stated the current deal being negotiated by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry would not stop, but actually pave the way for Iran to develop a nuclear bomb. The proposed deal would freeze Iran's nuclear program for a decade in exchange for relief from economic sanctions. Obama's remarks come with the deadline for an Iranian deal less than 30 days away. Negotiations are scheduled to wrap up on June 30th. In the meantime, a siren sounded Tuesday throughout most of Israel as part of a 5-day nationwide drill. It's the 8th annual drill to prepare for the possibility of a multi-front war. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The president's comments come as a new report says Iran's stockpile of nuclear fuel has been increasing. The New York Times reports the International Atomic Energy Agency found Iran's nuclear fuel supply has gone up by 20% in the last year and a half. And that increase, Pat, poses a new problem for Mr. Obama's hopes to reach a deal with Iran on its nuclear program.
I see that man on television, and I cannot believe one word he says. Because, first of all, he doesn't know. Secondly, he lies a lot. And it's just one of those terrible things that you've got a president who doesn't know what he's talking about. He says, oh, I can assure you that military solution isn't the answer. Yeah, sure. 18% increase in nuclear bombs, nuclear material, I should say. The Iranians are laughing at us. We've lifted the sanctions. They've gotten everything they wanted. We cannot get inspections. The French are saying if we cannot get inspections, the deal is no good, and yet we go blithely ahead as if nothing's the matter. It is insanity, but it's being led by somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about. John.
Pat, the U.S.-led coalition fighting against ISIS is re-examining its strategy after the terrorist group's recent gains in Iraq and Syria. The coalition is meeting in Paris after ISIS conquered both the Iraqi city of Ramadi and the historic Syrian city of Palmyra. More than 4,000 airstrikes by the coalition have failed to stop the Islamic State's gains, but the top U.S. coalition envoy is defending its strategy.
Contend that saying that it's not going well for the coalition just isn't correct. We do have setbacks, and Ramadi is definitely a setback. There are elements of Iraqi security forces that are approaching Ramadi now. So it's not like Mosul, where it collapsed and it has remained in Daesh's hands now for well over a year. The Iraqis are going to take Ramadi back.
No sharp change is expected to be announced at today's meeting, but Pat, as you know, critics have been warning for months that the president's plan to degrade and destroy ISIS isn't working.
Doesn't it break your heart to see a respected general who's got to lie and parrot the party line? It isn't working. We could take out ISIS. We could take them out. But we've got to make a concerted effort, and it's going to take so-called boots on the ground. We're going to have to put troops back in there. It's not a popular thing, and it doesn't play well with the electorate, but we've got to do it. We cannot give up the Middle East. And ISIS will get so strong, so deeply entrenched, we could never get them out. And all of a sudden, we will have Iraq and Syria in the hands of a radical group, and then they will begin to expand. Their goal is a caliphate that extends in what they call the Levant. That whole area, they want it all, and they're going to take it all, and they are brutal in doing it, and it is incumbent on the United States of America to stop it. But it will take a fully armed combat division with all the necessary armor and massive air power. We can take out ISIS in a matter of a month or so if we want to go forward with it. But what's happening now is ridiculous. We will not fight them in Syria. It's only in Iraq. And the Iraqi army has obviously not been capable of standing up against them. They run when ISIS shows up. So for a general to say, well, yes, we're making gains, it is just absurd. Don't you hate to get lied to over and over again on every front? Because they have a political agenda, and the political agenda trumps everything else. It trumps truth. It trumps reality. John.
Pat, 2 Christian pastors possibly facing execution in Sudan say they are not afraid. The charges are related to their Christian faith involving national security and offending Islamic beliefs. The pastors are from South Sudan. CBN's George Thomas talked to them by phone from their Khartoum jail cell. One pastor said he's not afraid because God chose him to suffer. The other said he has suffered psychological intimidation and hasn't talked to his family for 2 months. He was accused of spying when he was arrested last January.
When they interview me, they ask me why I'm preaching here. I say I'm preaching because this is my call. I'm a pastor. I must preach the word of God. They say no. You don't mean to preach the word of God. You have hidden agenda. I say no. I don't have any hidden agenda. They accuse me because I'm a spy here. They say like that.
Pastor Yane wants Christians to pray that their imprisonment will be for God's glory and that both pastors will be at peace with those who oppose them. You can hear more from the imprisoned preachers by checking out the Global Lane blog at cbnnews.com. Well, the death toll from the heat wave in India is now above 2,000, making it the 5th deadliest in the world. And in large parts of the country, there's no relief in sight from the blistering heat. But CBN Disaster Relief is on the scene to bring water to people who desperately need it. Dale Hurd has that story.
Temperatures near 120 degrees, coupled with a lack of rain, have caused water shortages in thousands of Indian villages and deaths from heat-related conditions, including dehydration and heat stroke. What some have called India's hottest summer since records began in the late 1800s had people across the nation doing what they could to stay hydrated and alive. Many farmers, construction workers, and the poor continued to work outdoors despite the risks. They, along with the elderly poor, are among the most vulnerable. This worker says, "I have to work in the sun. I'm poor and I have children to feed at home." This street vendor says, "It's difficult, but what can we do? We have to work so we can take care of our children." CBN's mobile water distribution camps have brought almost 30,000 gallons of water to the hardest hit regions. And CBN India has set up medical camps in villages.
We are facing a lot of difficulties because water comes only once every 2 or 3 weeks. The water is contaminated with waste and it's not fit for drinking. We have to travel to far-off places to collect water, so we appreciate your efforts.
India should receive cooling monsoon rains this time of year, but the forecasting service AccuWeather warns the drought could continue. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Pat, 2 to 3 weeks for water. Thank God for the work of CBN Disaster Relief.
Well, I just want you to know, folks, we're there when there's a disaster. CBN is there. India's a huge country. We obviously, with over 1 billion people, we can't do but so much. But already 30,000 gallons of water has been brought in, and we're setting up medical relief camps in villages to help those that are suffering from that heat stroke. We have whatever relief supplies we can. We've got distribution camps all over the country, 30,000 gallons of water, but that's just a drop in the bucket considering what the need is. But we're there to help, and so we'd like you to help us so we can help others. People suffer. We want to be there to help them, and it's Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. You can call in 800-759-0700. We need to help people, but oh, the suffering. Imagine you're in a situation where the heat is 120 degrees and you have no air conditioning and you have to get out and work. That one poor guy said, "I've got to feed my family. If I don't work, I don't get paid." So he starves to death. He's got to work despite the heat, 120 blistering, horrible degrees. John?
Pat, if you're not getting enough good sleep in your old age, that may contribute to your chances of getting Alzheimer's. A new study says poor sleep in old age could be linked to the plaques that clog the brain. Health Day News reports the study found that patients who had most of those plaques got lighter sleep and had memory problems. Other research has suggested a possible link between sleep problems early in life and Alzheimer's. Another expert told Health Day that sleep disorders are frequently reported in Alzheimer's patients. 2 experts agreed that better sleep is likely to help when it comes to Alzheimer's. And Pat, one of those researchers, said that this sleep is an early warning beacon for Alzheimer's.
I don't know if I got Alzheimer's, but
I'm
don't.
pretty sure you don't.
You know,
I
I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
I wake up early and I go to bed
It's
late.
interesting. I know you have such an interest in health and certainly
Yeah.
nutritionally, but the reports that are coming out now on the studies of the impact of good, deep sleep
Yeah.
are really remarkable.
I've started napping in the afternoon.
That's
it's really,
wise.
Yeah, it's really wise, and my father lived to a ripe old age, and he always knocked off for about 30 minutes.
So did my grandmother.
Really, the same
She
thing.
did.
I mean, and he was very vigorous, but that little nap in the middle of the day was a great help, and I tell you, I'm all for it.
Me
But
too.
anyhow, I told our producer that I take phosphatidylserine, which is very good for your brain.
That's a good thing.
If you can remember
Hit it from all sides, right?
if you can remember that, then it shows your memory hasn't failed.
There you go.
Phosphatidylserine complex.